Nathan Cole pulled his horse to a stop when he heard the agonizing, broken moans like the final breath caught in a dying throat. He stepped into the yard, and then he saw them. 3 Apache girls were hanging upside down from a wooden beam, their ankles bound tightly with coarse rope. Their dresses were torn to shreds, exposing their undergarments. Their bodies were bruised by the sun and the lash. Dust clung to their skin, and dried sweat left streaks of salt. But what made Nathan freeze were not the wounds. It was their eyes. Eyes of those who had lingered too long on the edge of death. One girl stirred, her voice raspy like sand. "It hurts." Another broke into sobs, her cry shattered by exhaustion. "Please, help us." The last one opened her eyes and stared straight into the space in front of Nathan, not daring to look at him, then whispered, each word dropping like pebbles onto burning ground. We will bear your children. Just please do not leave us." Nathan turned away instantly, his jaw clenched tight. He grabbed a blanket from his saddle and threw it over them before taking another step. Not a glance more. Not a single question. "Stay calm," he said, voice low and steady. "I am here." He circled around, standing slightly to the side, his back turned, hand reaching for his knife. As the steel blade sliced into the rope, the sound of it snapping echoed in the midday heat. A small sound. Yet to Nathan, it was like a vow spoken in silence. In a place this brutal, kindness is never loud, and sometimes it begins with not looking. Nathan kept his back turned as the last ropes gave way. He heard the bodies hit the ground softly, lightly, as if afraid to break something already too fragile. He set his hat down on the dirt, then took half a step back, keeping just enough distance not to startle them. "Stay still," he said, his voice low. "Breathe slow. The sun can make you pass out again." The 3 girls curled up under the blanket. They trembled not just from pain, but from shame, a kind of hurt that runs deeper than bruises. One girl let out a sob, trying to pull the torn fabric of her dress over her body. Nathan did not turn around. He crouched by the edge of a dry well, scooped up water, and set a canteen a few steps from them. "There is water there," he said. "Drink it in small sips." After a moment, a shaky voice asked, "Aren't you afraid?" Nathan was silent for a beat, then answered, "Yes, I am." He paused, then added, slowly, "But fear is not a reason to walk away." He tore his thick coat into strips and laid them on the ground. "Wrap your wounds. If you need, I will hold the lantern." Without looking, one of the girls gathered her courage and whispered, "Did you look at us?" Nathan shook his head, knowing they could not see him. "I only looked to see if anyone was still breathing," he said. That was enough. Hot wind swept through the yard. A crow landed on a wooden post and croaked harshly. Nathan stepped into the sunlight, casting his shadow over them. He asked no questions about what happened, demanded no answers. He simply did what needed to be done, like mending a fence after a storm, or pulling a calf out of the mud. Once they had taken some water and their breathing had steadied, Nathan finally said, "My name is Nathan. I live nearby." He pointed toward the distance. "You are safe. For now," one girl whispered. "We thought no one would ever come back." Nathan looked toward the fields, eyes squinting against the sun. "Sometimes," he said, "the only thing left to do is to come back." As the words left his mouth, a dry crack split the air. A bullet slammed into the wooden post where he had just stood. Nathan did not curse. He moved quickly, pulling all 3 girls down to the dirt. "Keep low," he ordered. "The trap has been set." And in that moment, amid the dust and burning sun, they understood. The man who would not look had chosen to stay. The bullet slammed into the wooden post, splinters from the rotting timber flying like shards of broken bone. Nathan reacted before thought could catch up. He lunged forward, dragging all 3 girls to the ground, his body shielding them for a brief moment, but long enough to save their lives. "Stay low," he hissed, his voice tight. "Do not lift your head." The second shot tore through the air and struck the dirt where they had just crawled. Nathan understood immediately there was a sniper on the western hillside, elevated, with a clear view, and waiting. "This is not a robbery," he said quickly. "It is a trap." He spotted a dry trench running across the yard, filled with cracked mud and brittle grass. "Follow me." "Crawl." The three girls gritted their teeth, dragging their battered bodies after him, blood soaked into the cracked soil. But no one cried out. Only the sound of ragged breaths and pounding hearts filled their ears. When they reached the trench, Nathan gave the horse a light slap. It turned and galloped straight toward his ranch. "Go home," he whispered. "Raise the alarm." One of the girls grabbed his sleeve, her eyes wide with panic. They knew you would stop." Nathan paused for half a beat. "How?" She swallowed hard, her voice trembling. "We were hung there as bait." The third shot cracked, hitting the edge of the trench, flinging dirt into their faces. Nathan pulled them deeper in, using his body to shield the hill-facing side. He felt it. Whoever was up there was waiting for him to lean in, to do exactly what he had just done. "Who is it?" Nathan asked, eyes locked on the ridge. One of the girls broke down in tears. He said, "You were the kind who would never walk away." Nathan gave a dry laugh, void of humor. Well, he was right. They crawled along the trench, each meter stretching like a mile. At the end, a narrow path led to an abandoned shack. Half the roof collapsed, door hanging loose. Nathan signaled for them to stop, listening. No gunfire for a few seconds. The shooter was adjusting. "Listen to me," Nathan said, voice low and firm. "We are not running. We are disappearing." They slipped into the shack just as the next bullet cracked through the air, burying itself in the dirt behind them. Inside, it was dark and stifling. The smell of damp wood and dead rats thickened the air. Nathan placed the girls along the wall, his eyes scanning them quickly, just enough to confirm they were still breathing. He reloaded his gun, then leaned against the rotting wood. "Now," he said softly, "you tell me. Who wants me dead?" Outside, the Kansas wind still blew, but now the hunt had begun. Inside the abandoned shack, slivers of sunlight slipped through the broken wooden slats. The air was stifling, thick with the smell of mildew, rat droppings, and dried blood. Nathan shut the door tight, braced it with an old wooden crate, then crouched with his back to them so he would not make them feel cornered. "Take another sip," he said. "Do not talk just yet." It took a long while before their breathing steadied. The youngest girl was the first to speak, her voice trembling like it might break apart. "We worked for a freight company out of Abilene, stocking shelves, taking notes, loading supplies." She paused, as if afraid of the weight of her own words. "We overheard a conversation." Nathan did not interrupt. He simply nodded, signaling for her to continue. They were talking about land. Another girl picked up. "A lot of land. Property that is about to be forced into sale. Your name." It came up. Nathan frowned. "My name?" She nodded, tears welling up. They said, "If you disappeared, everything would go smoother." The air grew heavier. Nathan stared at the rotting wall in front of him, where a deep crack ran across the wood like a scar. "Who said it?" he asked. The girls glanced at one another. Then the oldest one whispered it barely loud enough to hear, as if scared the name might hear her back. "Marcus Hale." Nathan closed his eyes for a beat. Marcus, the man who had once shared his dinner table, drunk whiskey in his kitchen on cold winter nights, said, "If you ever need me, I'm here." He found out we knew. The girl continued. "He laughed, said you were a good man, that you would never walk away." Nathan let out a soft, bitter laugh, dry and heavy. "And so he strung you up, to test me." The girl nodded. He said, "All it would take was for you to kneel and cut the rope, and the bullet would finish the job." Outside, the wind howled across the prairie. Nathan opened the chamber, checked his rounds, each motion slow, deliberate, steady. "He does not just want land," he said. "He wants to prove that kindness is foolish." One girl whispered, her voice shaky, "If you left now, we would understand." Nathan turned to them for the first time, not looking at them, but at the ground between them. "I am not here to be understood," he said. "I am here because I already chose to stay." Outside, footsteps crunched through the dry grass. Nathan straightened his back, loaded his weapon, and spoke in a low voice. "Now listen to me. He is coming, and when he comes, he will not negotiate. In that broken-down shack, among the betrayed, truth had grown sharp enough to cut skin. Thank you kindly for being here. And if this story reminded you of the old days' dusty afternoons, the sound of hoofbeats echoing in your chest, go ahead and subscribe to my channel. So every day, we can sit together once more, and I will tell you another tale from the West. The footsteps stopped right outside the shack. No rush, no panic, just the calm confidence of a man who knew he was holding the noose. A man's voice called out gravelly, and so bitterly familiar it stung. "Come on out, Nathan." Nathan said nothing. He stood between the girls and the door, his back pressed to the rotting wall, the barrel of his gun lowered but ready. Sweat slid down his spine, not from heat, but from the name on the other side of that door. "You are always like this," the voice continued, followed by a dry chuckle. "Always choosing the hard way." The shack door gave a slight rattle as a hand slapped it. "It's me, Marcus. We are brothers, remember?" Nathan clenched his jaw. "Brothers do not hang women from rafters." There was a beat of silence. Then Marcus laughed louder, the sound hard and cold like stone scraping stone. "Do not act like you are pure, Nathan. I am just using what I have. And you," he dragged the words out, "you are the easiest thing in the world to predict." One of the girls burst out, her voice cracked with fury. "We are not bait." Marcus snapped back without hesitation, not needing to see them. "In this game, everybody is bait. Even him." Nathan stepped forward half a pace, his voice low and steely. "Your game ends here, Marcus." Outside, metal-clinked henchmen were moving, closing the circle. Marcus dropped his voice, slow and patronizing, like explaining something to a child. "You think the law will get here in time? Or those hired guns of yours?" he snorted. "They will show up after you are down." Nathan looked at the dirt floor, then spoke clear, steady. "Then you had better shoot." Marcus paused. "No," he said, his tone shifting darker now. "Cruel. I want you to walk out on your own. Kneel. Look me in the eye, so you understand just how much your kindness ruined everything." One of the girls clutched Nathan's hand, shaking. He placed his hand over hers, pressing gently, a small act of reassurance. "I understood a long time ago," Nathan said, eyes still locked on the door. "You do not want land. You want proof that no one should ever stop." Marcus's teeth ground together. "That is right. Because every time you stop, you make me look like a monster." Nathan reloaded. The click echoed through the silent shack. "No," he said. "You look that way because that is what you chose to be." Outside, the Kansas wind picked up. Footsteps split off. Surrounding the shack, Marcus dropped his voice to a chilling whisper. "Last chance, Nathan. Come out." Nathan did not move. He stood tall, shielding 3 lives behind him, and answered slow, firm, without a hint of retreat. "If you want me out, then you come get me." In that moment, every way back vanished. All that remained was the choice and the price that came with it. Marcus Hale kicked the door hard. The rotted wood shuddered, dust falling like ash. "Come out, Nathan," he roared. "Get on your knees. I want you to see exactly what your kindness is worth." Nathan did not respond. He pulled back the bolt on his rifle, the metallic snap cutting through the cramped air. The 3 girls pressed tightly together, eyes wide, not crying anymore, just frozen in fear. Marcus kept going, voice slicing through the wind. "Who do you think you are? Some savior? A saint out here on the prairie?" He let out a sharp, guttural laugh. "No, you are just a fool who always stops right when I need you to." Nathan took a step forward, standing fully in front of the door, his voice dropping cold and forged like steel. "So you knew I would stop, and you did it anyway." Marcus was silent for a beat. Then he exploded. "That is right, because I want you to die slow. I want you on your knees. I want you to understand. Morals do not buy land." One of the girls snapped back, her voice raspy but sharp. "He is not like you." Marcus spun toward the shack and bellowed. "Shut up. You are just the excuse." Nathan lowered the barrel of his gun but stood firm, shoulders squared, unmoving. "No," he said. "They are the reason." Marcus laughed like a man unhinged, the sound broken and frayed. "Reason? You would die for them? He growled through clenched teeth. 3 lives for hundreds of acres. I call that a bargain. Nathan raised his head, his gaze steady and unblinking. And I call that a crime. Outside, the click of rifles echoed. His men were locking in. The trap was nearly shut. Marcus's voice dropped, each word heavy like stones on dry earth. Step out. Right now. Or I shoot through the walls. You have 10 seconds. Nathan turned quietly, placed a firm hand on each girl's shoulder, a fast, steady touch. Keep low, he whispered. When I say run, you run. He turned back toward the door. You say, I like being better than you, Nathan said, his voice calm and even. No. I just refuse to become you. Marcus roared. You think I am afraid of blood? Nathan opened the door and stepped halfway out. The Kansas sun poured in like fire. No, he said. I know you crave it. Time froze. Wind howled. Sweat slid down his back. Then from far off the faint sound of hoofbeats. Small, but enough to make Marcus turn his head. And Nathan knew. The fire had been lit. Now it was time to see who would burn. The sound of hoofbeats was no longer distant. It thundered into the yard of the abandoned ranch, heavy and fast, like war drums. Marcus Hale spun around, eyes wide with shock and rage. No. No, that is not possible, he hissed. Nathan did not back down. He stood his ground, half his body in sunlight, the other half in shadow like he himself was the last line between evil and the vulnerable behind him. From the edge of the field, riders emerged. Dust-covered coats, weapons drawn. Leading them was Sheriff Clayton Brooks, face carved from stone. Behind him rode a few of Nathan's longtime ranch hands, quiet men with hard eyes and steady hands. Drop your weapon, Clayton barked. Marcus Hale, you are under arrest. Marcus let out a twisted laugh, raw and broken. Too late, he screamed. It is already done. He raised his gun but never got the chance. A shot cracked from the deputies. The bullet struck not flesh, but steel, knocking the gun clean out of Marcus's hand. He collapsed into the dry dirt, a cloud of dust erupting around him. Cuff him, Clayton ordered. 2 deputies rushed in, pinning Marcus to the ground. He thrashed and screamed like a wild animal backed into a corner. You do not understand anything. He turned toward Nathan, eyes bloodshot and wild. You did not have to do this, Nathan. You could have just looked away. Nathan stepped forward, stopping right in front of him. No anger. No scorn. Just a deep, worn-out tiredness. I know, he said. But if I looked away, this would all just happen again. Marcus was hauled to his feet, cold iron locking around his wrists. He kept shouting, but his voice had cracked. You will regret this. Land does not belong to the soft-hearted. Nathan watched as Marcus was dragged off. Then he turned away, saying nothing more. Clayton walked over to the shack, his voice low. They gonna make it? Nathan nodded, still breathing. That is enough. The 3 Apache girls were helped out into the light. The sun was still harsh, but no longer like a blade. One of them looked back at Nathan, eyes rimmed red. You came back. Nathan did not answer right away. He stared out across the fields, land, wind, and everything that had almost been lost. Sometimes, he said softly, coming back is the only thing that keeps a man from becoming a monster. As the group rode off, the abandoned yard fell silent once more. But something had ended, and something else harder had just begun. The abandoned ranch returned to its natural silence. The Kansas wind blew through broken fence posts, carrying the scent of hot earth and dry grass. The sun had begun to set, its light no longer harsh like midday, but still strong enough to reveal the tracks and footprints left behind. Nathan Cole sat down on a tipped-over crate, elbows resting on his knees. His hands trembled slightly, not from fear but because everything had finally come to bear its full weight. The 3 Apache girls sat a few steps away, wrapped tightly in blankets. They no longer shivered from cold, but they remained silent, the kind of silence that only comes after stepping across the edge of death. After a while, the eldest spoke, her voice barely above a whisper, as if afraid to disturb the stillness. If you knew it was a trap, why did you still come back? Nathan did not answer right away. He looked out toward the fields, where the horizon blurred in the fading light. Because if I had not come back, he said slowly, then the rest of my life would have been spent running. The girl lowered her head. We thought men out here only cared about land. Nathan shook his head. Land does not need me to become someone else. He took a deep breath. But people do. Another girl asked, her voice still weak. Do you regret it? Nathan looked up, his eyes red but steady. I did not have to do it, he said. Then after a beat, he added clear and firm. But I knew I had to. They understood. Not through words, but by the way he had stood between them and death. When the sun finally disappeared, the sheriff returned to take them away. As they climbed into the truck, the youngest girl paused, turning back to Nathan. You never looked. Nathan nodded. Because I did not need to. The truck rolled away. Dust kicked up, then disappeared into the twilight. Nathan stood alone in the empty yard of the ranch, once a trap, now just a memory. Out here in the West, folks often say strength is about who can shoot faster. But Nathan had come to understand something different. Real strength is doing what is right when no one is making you. And sometimes, the one thing that keeps your humanity intact is simply turning back. Friend. The kindness of Nathan Cole was never about how many people he saved. It was about the fact that he did not need an audience. In the harsh prairie, when walking away would have been safer, he stayed not to be a hero. Not for gratitude, but because to walk away would have meant losing himself. This story reminds us. The world can be cold, but every kind choice is a small fire. And sometimes, keeping the human part of you alive is the greatest victory. It means the world to have you here. I only hope that wherever you are safe, and you are happy. I love you all, my dear friends and listeners of Wild West Storytelling. Tell me what this story meant to you. Leave a comment below. Tap the number 1 if you like this tale. And do not forget to subscribe for more